Okay, good evening, guys. Can you all let me know if you all can hear me and see a screen? Yes, can see a screen. Yeah, right. I think most of you all would have gone to school today and come back. And school started today after your O-level break. Yeah, right. So today, guys, we need to start with the Unit 4 essay questions. Okay, we had two classes before for Unit 4, and we did the MCQs from 2011 to 2022. And today, what we will be doing is we will be starting the essay questions of Unit 4. And also the fast track students, by now you all should have completed the essay questions. Okay, but we'll discuss today and we'll see if I can have maybe an extra class on the weekend. And if possible, let's try to finish it off this week itself, so that next week we can go to unit number 5. Depending on my schedule, if possible, I'll have an extra class this weekend. Hoping that's all right. So we'll try to speed up a little and cover off the past papers and finish it off as soon as possible. Okay. So we'll start with the 2011 paper, guys. How many of y'all did the question? Yes, 2011. At least from 2011 to, let's say, 2015 or 2016. It's all right if you have not done everything, at least half of it, so that we can discuss today. Otherwise, you're just going to look at my face and, wait. Others, guys, have you all done? Yes, no? Okay, so I have around 15 to 20 yeses. Okay, others who are silent, I'm guessing you all have not done. Guys, I'm telling you all again and again, please don't accumulate the past papers to do it at the end. It will never happen. Okay, because at the end you all are under too much of pressure, and the only thing that you all will be doing is just reading the question and answer. You need answer writing practice. So for you to do this, guys, it will only take you maximum 30 minutes per question. That means, let's say 2011 question number 3, to do the entire question, it takes around 30 minutes. So try to allocate some time and do it. And when you all are doing it, if you want, if you are not very confident, maybe even refer to your notes and write answers. Don't copy and paste what's in your note. Now, for example, if you don't know what short run and long run production is, soon open your tute, read what is short run and long run production, close the tute, and then write an answer on your own words. So try to do things like that. The more you all write, the better you all will get. Okay, right. We'll start with the 2011 A-level paper, question number 3. This is the question from unit number 4. So question number 3, subsection 1 says, distinguish between the short run and long run in production. Yes, what's the difference between the short run and the long run in production? So the short run is a time period where you have what, guys? The short run, what can you say? Give me the key things that you all have to write. Yeah, the key things that you all have to write is at least one factor, right? One factor of production is fixed. You can say that there is both variable and fixed inputs in the short run production process. What are the other main things that you all can write? You can say there are both, because I'm not giving you all a paragraph format answer. You all can develop that. I'll give you all the key points that you all need to have. Okay, so you can start off your answer and say, right, the short run is a time period where there is at least one factor of production which is fixed. So there is both variable and fixed inputs in the short run production process. And then what can you say? To maximize output, variable input must be maximized. Not really, right? Yes, you can talk a little bit about the law of, you can say the law governing the short run production process is the law of diminishing marginal returns, right? You can say that, the law of diminishing marginal returns. You can talk about those. And also, if you want, you can write the production function. So you can say output is a function of, right? uh, is a function, right? Is a function of, right? Within brackets, you can say L1, L2, L3 goes all the way until, let's say, Ln, comma, only one capital is there. Because in the short run, you all know you can increase labor, but you can't increase your capital. So, you can give the short run production function like this. So, for 1 mark, if you have written that, it's more than enough case. Now, remember, this is only a 2-mark question, no? So, you don't have to write pages and pages. Like a small 3-line paragraph on what is the short run production, another 3 to 4-line paragraph about what is long run production is more than enough because they're only giving you 2 marks. Right? So maybe even giving the production function here is not needed. Okay. Yeah. So if you say at least one input is fixed, no problem. Okay. Right. Then can you tell me, guys, what can I write if I'm talking about the long run? What are the key things that I should highlight? The long run in production is a time period where all factors of production can be changed, or you can say all inputs can be changed. Therefore, all factors are variable, right? And then what is the law governing this? The law governing this is the law of returns to returns to scale. And you can also be saying, you can also put the production function if you want. So you can say output is a function of K1, K2, K3, all the way until Kn. So this is showing that you can increase labor and you can also increase capital when it comes to the long run. So these are the key points that you have to write. Even these points are a little too much because it's only a 2-mark question, but not that you're going to lose anything. So you all can actually write and give in an answer. Is that okay, guys? This is a very easy question to start off with. Fine. Short run and the long run. Guys, I'll tell you one more thing. No, guys, you all can't write point form. You all need to write 2 small paragraphs. I am giving the answer in, I'm just giving the keywords, okay? Don't write points like this in your answer. Okay, you have to have 1 paragraph on short run, 1 paragraph on this. Okay, and I'll tell you the good news, guys. Unit number 4, the question that you get from unit number 4 is the easiest question usually in your paper. Okay, the reason behind that is for unit number 4, I told you all this in the fast track also, they can't ask practical questions. There is nothing that they can ask much. Now, in unit number 1, they can. Now, remember, they asked these power cuts and all. They asked you how to show that in the PPC, COVID-19, how to practical, current context ones. Unit number 2 also, they can put something. Unit number 3 also, they can put something. But when it comes to unit number 4, okay, the ability to put practical questions or even I'll say current context questions is almost zero. They can give in a little practical question, that's okay. But current context questions about what is happening in the country now, it's very hard to connect with unit number 4. So the good news of that is the question that you will get in your paper will most likely be, now come on, it's a small unit, guys, production, cost and market structures. For the last 20 years, okay, nothing has changed in this unit. There are no statistics, there are no current issues, there is nothing. So all the questions you will get in your paper are questions that would have already been tested in past papers because there's nothing else to ask from this, guys. Now, once we do all the past papers little by little, by the time we come to, let's say, the last few papers, you will realize it's the same thing because you can't ask, guys, you can't ask any current context thing and change the question, right? You can't do anything. So only thing you can do is same thing, you change it here and there. So I'll tell you, this is a unit that you can easily score, right? The question that you get from this unit is comparatively more easier than the question that you even get from, let's say, unit number 1. Okay, so just have that in mind. Okay, we'll move to the next. explain the law of diminishing returns. Law of diminishing returns, and they're only giving you 2 marks. So that means you don't have to write a lot. So what can you tell about the law of diminishing returns, guys? What is the law of diminishing returns? You can say, right, the law of diminishing returns is the law that explains how the product, how, let's say, the behavior of the output in the short run, right? So what can you say? The law of diminishing returns is the law that explains the behavior of an output of a firm in the short run. And then you can say, in the short run, when a firm increases its way, okay, what's the first point? First point you can say, right? Okay, you need to talk about the short run. You need to say, this is the law that explains the behavior of the output of a firm in the short run. Yeah, short run output explains how the output works. Then you can go a little bit more in detail and say, in the short run, when a firm increases its variable inputs, given that there is a fixed input, what happens? After a point, what happens, guys? After a point, when you keep on increasing variable and variable and variable input to your fixed input, what happens? The marginal product and average product starts to diminish, or in other words, it starts to decrease. So given that this is only a 2-mark question, this is more than enough. Maybe if this was a 4-mark question, you can go a little bit more in detail. You can draw the diagram. You can talk a little bit about the 3 stages in this. Remember, increasing marginal returns, decreasing marginal returns, negative marginal returns. Remember 3 stages. You can talk a little bit about that if it's maybe a 4-mark question. So for something like this, a small paragraph of around 4 to 5 lines explaining it is more than enough. Okay, so just to summarize, the first thing that you can write, assumptions and all, not a must, guys. Not that needed. Okay, unless they have said to write the assumption. Okay, so you can say the law of diminishing returns is the law that explains how the short run output of a firm, let's say, behaves, or it explains the behavior of the short run output of a firm. So you can say, in the short run, when a firm increases its output by increasing more and more variable inputs, what happens is the marginal product and average product starts to diminish after a certain point. Okay, no, guys, diminishing, guys, when they say law of diminishing marginal returns, this is the law, right? Under this only you have the 3 stages. What are the 3 stages? One is increasing marginal returns, second one is diminishing marginal returns, and the third one is negative marginal returns, right? So inside the law of diminishing returns only you have these 3 stages. Now remember, in this question, they are not asking you about stage 2. That is not what they are asking. They are not asking to explain diminishing margins. They are asking to explain the law of diminishing returns. So that is the entire thing, that is what they are asking you to explain. Okay, not just the second stage. Is that okay? Right. So if it's a 4-mark question, okay, 4-mark question, you can talk a little bit about the 3 stages and all. You can draw the diagram as well to support your answer. Can we say at first MP and AP increases at first and after a certain point decreases? Yes. Even if you don't say the increase part, that's okay. But you say after a certain point that it decreases, that definitely you have to say. You can say initially it increases, but after a certain point, it falls down. Okay. Is that okay, guys? Can you all write a 2-mark answer for asking what is the law of diminishing marginal returns? This is a small 2-mark question. So around 4-5 lines is more than enough. Guys, you all have to write, okay, put your answers into words and write. Okay, yeah, you can talk a little bit about TP also, no problem. No problem at all. We'll move to the next. Explain the difference between explicit and implicit cost giving examples, right? Yes, what are explicit costs? Explicit costs. Okay, I'll copy and paste from my tute itself directly, guys. What is an explicit cost? Explicit cost is a direct cost. Fine, but how do we explain that? You can't say explicit cost is direct cost. They're not going to give you marks because that is another name for direct cost. So you need to explain what does this mean. So what is an explicit cost? Hmm? Hmm? Okay, so what's the definition, guys? What's the definition for explicit cost or direct cost or whatever? Hmm? I'll just take a screenshot of my tute here. Put okay, right. So you all can say, guys, that explicit cost, or in other words, direct cost, is the cost of purchasing inputs from outside the firm. Cost of what? Cost of purchasing inputs from outside the firm. So whenever you get, let's say, for example, if you get higher labor from outside, if you use electricity, if you buy raw materials, if you have to pay for advertising, so anything that you use, right? If you use inputs from outside the firm, you have to make a direct monetary payment. No one is going to come and work for free or give you raw materials or anything for free. So see, the amount of money spent to purchase inputs from outside the firm is what you call a direct cost. Remember, another name for direct cost is only explicit cost. And then you can give in some examples. And then what is indirect cost? Indirect cost is the opportunity cost of using the firm's own raw materials or the firm's own resources. So using your own capital, using the firm's own labor, right? Then there is what? Foregone income, foregone interest, economic depreciation, normal profit. All of those are indirect costs, which is what you also call implicit cost. So how you will get marks for a question like this is you'll get 1 mark for explaining what is explicit cost, 1 mark for the example, or they will give 1.5 marks for explicit, half a mark for example. Same way for implicit cost as well. So you need to give a small paragraph of around, let's say, 2 to 3 lines, and then giving an example. Then the next paragraph talk about implicit cost, 2 to 3 lines, giving an example or two. That is more than enough for your 4 mark question. Is that okay? Can handle? That's a very easy question, guys. Right? Oh, yes, you can also say that accountants consider direct cost in their profit calculation, while an economist will take direct and indirect cost both into their profit calculations. Yes, you can take both of them. You can write something like that as well. Okay. Moving to the next. What are economies of scale? How do they arise? Guys, what is economies of scale? What is economies of scale? Economies of scale is in the long run. No, it's not the behavior of long run. In the long run, when a firm expands production, right? When a firm expands production, what happens? The decrease in average cost, or you can say average total cost, is known as economies of scale. So what is economies of scale? Economies of scale is where in the long run, when the firm gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, what happens? The average cost. Guys, can you give me another name for average cost? Not average total cost. Another name for average cost. Another name. This can also be called the unit cost, guys, right? Or the cost per unit. Total cost divided by the number of units. Cost per unit, right? That is what you call the average cost. So in the long run, when a firm expands production, when it increases production more and more and more, the decrease in average cost is known as economies of scale. So why do these economies of scale arise, guys? What are the reasons behind this? How do they arise? So remember, you can talk about purchasing economies of scale. What is purchasing economies of scale? This is where when you buy in bulk, right? When you buy in bulk, what do you get, guys? You get discounts, right? That is one reason. Another one, you can talk about managerial economies of scale, right? Managerial economies of scale. What is this? Managerial economies of scale is where, you are able to hire, right? You're able to recruit the experienced managers into your firm. So as a result, what happens? The productivity of your firm improves. Therefore, your average cost goes down. Then you can talk about technological efficiency, right? You can talk about technological economies of scale. Okay, right? You can also talk about this one, financial economies of scale, where you can, right? You can talk, yes, you can talk about marketing also. So financial economies of scale, you can say where you borrow at a lower cost, right? You can talk about marketing economies of scale, where you can spread your marketing costs for a large number of units. You can also talk about risk bearing. Yes. So all those are reasons that you all can write about. Remember, in the fast track class, I told you, maybe in your year, they can give you a question just to explain one of these. I wanted you all to do some extra reading. Did you all do that? Yes. So remember last week, I asked you when we did the paper, you don't have to give a big explanation, but you might have to write a small line about this, guys. Now, when you say how do they arise, you can't just say purchasing economies of scale, right? So maybe you can say purchasing economies of scale, and you can say because of this, when the firm expands and when they produce a large amount, they will be purchasing raw materials in bulk quantities. So therefore, they get bulk buying discounts, which reduces their average cost. One reason. Another one, let's say, okay, managerial economics. So you can say when the firm enters in the long run and expands its production, they are able to hire well experienced and trained managers. These managers would help improve the productivity or the efficiency of the firm, which in turn will reduce the average cost. So you can expand a little like that. Okay, on this, how do they arise part? Is that okay? You don't have to write around everything, maybe at least 3 of it. If you have wrote a little bit, that's okay. Indivisibility of production factors, I'll come to that. That's when we talk about increasing returns to scale. Okay, right. And also here, don't write about increasing returns to scale, guys. Now, increasing returns to scale is the production aspect. No, when you increase input, output increases by a greater proportion. That is increasing returns to scale. That's the production aspect of it. Don't talk about that when you talk about economies of scale. Okay. Now, you can write a little. You can say, in the long run, the firm experiences increased return scale. That could also help in economies of scale. Fine, but don't talk too much about that. Then you're going off. All right. Now, we'll move to the next one. So for this, how would they divide the marks? Ideally, they can give you, right? So I don't know. That depends on the paper. You all can check in your marking scheme as well, whatever answer you have. So ideally, how they can give is most likely what I feel is 2 for this and 2 for this. Yeah. Or else maybe 1 and 3. Right? Because here they're asking what are economies of scale. So you don't have much to write. It's a small definition. Economies of scale is where the average cost is falling. Right? That then you can add a small line or 2. So they are not going to give you 3 for what are economies of scale. It's either 1 and 3 or 2 and 2. But most likely, I feel it's 2 and 2. It's a 6-mark question. Sorry. So if it's a 6-mark question, then they will give 2 and 4, guys. Sorry. Then you will have to explain more on the how do they arise. Sorry, I didn't see it was 6 mark, right? So then they will give you 2 marks for this and 4 marks for this. That's how they will break it down. So 2 marks for explaining what is economies of scale, and then given that they are giving you 4 marks here, what you will have to do is you will have to explain these guys. You can't just write points. Like I said, you have to write a small explanation. So once again, what can you write about managerial economies? So you can say managerial economies is where when the firm expands output or when the firm increases its scale, what happens? They are able to attract, right, more talented and more experienced managers. Think of this case. Now, think of very experienced people. Will they go and work for a small company? No, no. Yeah. Now, let's say, for example, Coca-Cola comes to Sri Lanka. Everyone would like to go and work there. No, they're a multinational, they're a big firm, right? Well reputed. That's what we talk about managerial economics. So when the firm expands and becomes big and big and big, people love to work there. So it's very easy for them to attract talent. Right? They can easily hire managers, right? Experienced people who would help them to do what, guys? Who would help them to improve the productivity or would help them to improve the efficiency in their production process. As a result, their cost goes down. So these managers are very experienced, well trained, right? They can lead a team, they can, handle the production, they can handle the marketing, they can do everything. And as a result, cost goes down. That's managerial economies of scale. Fine. So given that it's 6 marks, guys, you have to lightly explain 4 of this. You don't have to write paragraphs and paragraphs, but at least around 2 lines. So 2 lines about what is purchasing, 2 lines about this, 2 lines about this. So ideally 4 points here, right? You need to give 4 points on how do they arise. And this. Is that okay? Questions, problems, issues? Okay. Right. We'll move to the next. The last question says, okay, these are the easiest question that you can ever get, right? You will be lucky if you find one like this. What are the 4 types of market structures? Explain the distinguishing characteristics of any one of them. Okay. What are the 4 types? If you don't know this, that means you have not learned the unit at all. If you can't at least name the 4 types of market structure, you get 2 marks for that. What are the 4 types? At least if you're lazy, just at least type one of the type. Okay, you have perfect competition, you have monopolies, monopoly, you have monopolistic competition, and you have an oligopoly. Yeah, these are very easy. And then guys, remember, for all of these 4 types, you need to know the characteristic. Did you see last 2 weeks when we did the MCQs? Every year there was a question from one of these 4 characteristics. Yeah, every year. Which of the following is not a characteristic of it? Which of the following is a distinguishing factor? Which of the factor is different between this and this? Right? Every year there is one. So on your end, right, for all the 4 market structures, minimum no 4 characteristics. So now see, now when they ask you explain the distinguishing characteristic one of them, at least you need to write 4, no? So guys, I'm not going to type each one of it, which I am guessing by now you all know, right? Can I avoid that? Since we did all of these in the MCQs, and if you all have learned the MCQs, you can use the MCQ answers itself and write it in your paper too. So at least talk about 4 of them, guys. Talk about the number of buyers and sellers, talk about the product, whether it's a unique product, whether it's a homogeneous, whether it's a differentiated product, talk about the barriers to entry and exit, talk about whether the firm is a price maker or price taker. Yeah, so you can talk about things like that. So how will the marks be allocated? They will give you 2 marks for this, right? 2 marks for the 4 market structures, and they'll give you 4 marks for explaining the characteristics. So when you say explain the characteristics, you have to explain 4 characteristics, right? I'll just give you one. Okay, so you can say, okay, let's talk about perfect competition. So one characteristic I would say, now I will write the heading saying perfect competition because they are saying no, explain the characteristic of any one of them. So you have to say which one are you explaining? Okay, so you said perfect comparison, and then I'll say price taken. So here I can say, okay, perfectly I'll just show you how to explain, right? A perfectly uh sorry, perfectly competitive firm will act as a price taker, right? Due to what? Due to you can talk about the three reasons, or you can talk about due to the fact that there are a large number of firms. One firm is a homogeneous product, and also there is perfect information. You can give a small explanation like that, more than enough, right? And what is price taker? You can say this is where the firm can't set its own price. It will have to take the price, or it will have to sell the good at whatever price that is in the market. A small 1 to 2 line explanation is more than enough. You don't have to, write pages and pages. And then you go to the second characteristic. Yeah. Now, and also if you want, you can give a small example also, but I don't think they're going to give you marks for examples. But if you want, just to add a little bit more value or make your answer a little nicer, give an example. That's fine. Right. That is the 2011 paper. I didn't see anything that is very hard. First one is about distinguish between short run and long run. Second one was on what is the law of diminishing returns. Third one was on explicit and implicit costs. Fourth one was on economies of scale and how do they arise. And the last one is the 4 types of market structures and the distinguishing characteristics. Right. How did you all do in that question? Did okay? Chip? Yeah. Right. Then we'll move to the next.